Welcome back to Between Two Leaves, where we break down the biggest MongoDB ships from the last month. I'm Sabina from Product Marketing.
And I'm Luce, a Senior Developer Advocate on our Builder Relations team. So Sabina, March brought massive quality of life improvements for enterprise operators and developers alike, right? Things like better observability, faster data recovery, and a big update for the .NET ecosystem.
Yep, totally. And we've got 4 updates to cover today, plus a live look at the MongoDB Entity Framework Core provider in action with its new support for .NET 10. So let's get into it. Today, we're going to talk about the pain of disjointed monitoring. You used to have to jump between Atlas and your observability tools to piece together what happened during an incident.
Oh my God, yes. I'm just getting flashbacks, just thinking about downloading logs manually during a fire drill, and it's just the absolute worst. So getting these pushed directly to Datadog or some kind of open telemetry collector means that we can finally overlay database metrics directly on top of our app logs, which is awesome.
Exactly. So this Atlas log integration feature automatically pushes MongoDB logs, including MongoD and audit logs, to third-party monitoring tools like Luce mentioned, Datadog, Splunk, and OpenTelemetry compliant collectors. It also pushes to cloud object stores such as AWS S3, Azure Blob Storage, and Google Cloud Storage.
That's awesome, because centralizing database telemetry in a single interface means that teams can actually correlate MongoDB behavior with application health, and that means faster troubleshooting and incident responses. And who doesn't want that in the middle of the night, right?
Exactly. It's also a game changer for long-term retention requirements. So pushing to cloud object stores meets long-term log retention and compliance requirements while removing the need for that manual log download that folks previously struggled with.
Amazing. What else have we got?
Let's move on to disaster recovery. If you were restoring a multi-terabyte database, your Ops Manager application server used to be the bottleneck. It had to handle all of that data passing through.
Right, and now Ops Manager is just acting like the conductor, so it orchestrates the job, but the actual data streams directly from S3 to the nodes. So Ops Manager still orchestrates the workflow and integrity checks, but it no longer has to handle the backup load itself.
Yep, that's exactly right. So direct from S3 Restore lets Ops Manager stream snapshot data directly from S3 compatible storage to MongoDB nodes. This bypasses the Ops Manager application server in the data path. By taking Ops Manager out of that hot data path, restores are no longer constrained by Ops Manager's CPU, network, or scale-out footprint.
Awesome. So this means that you can push more throughput through your existing S3 infrastructure, achieve faster and more predictable RTOs, and avoid the pain of over-provisioning Ops Manager just to handle those peak restore traffic situations.
That's right, Luce. So you no longer have to pay to over-provision Ops Manager servers just for the rare event of a massive restore.
That's amazing. Okay, I want to do a quick one for all our site reliability engineers out there, because alert fatigue is real. I've been a site reliability engineer in the past. I know all about it. So getting paged at 3 a.m. for something your team considers a low priority issue is kind of brutal.
Yep, exactly. And that's why you can now define and override the severity levels of Atlas alerts to match your actual operational requirements. So this feature allows you to fine-tune default priorities and customize how different issues are categorized within the monitoring ecosystem.
That's cool. So configurable severity levels ensure that teams can actually prioritize critical issues while minimizing the noise from non-essential notifications, especially in the middle of the night. Love it.
Yep, we love it. So to summarize, prioritize the critical stuff, mute the noise, and get some sleep. Ultimately, this optimization leads to faster response times for those high priority incidents and improved overall operational efficiencies. All right, and now it's time for our live demo. Luce, take it away.
Thanks. So if you're a .NET developer, Entity Framework is something you've probably seen a lot. It's a commonly used way to interact with data. And having to learn a completely new paradigm just to use a document database used to be a point of friction, but no more. Now you don't have to choose between MongoDB or EF Core 10. So let's have a look. So here we have a standard web API project. As a .NET developer, you'll be used to this. It's even using the standard template that you get from the .NET when you create a new web API project. So it's got the usual weather forecast data. But what I've done is I've gone ahead and updated it to use Entity Framework Core and the MongoDB EF Core provider. So we've got a new AppDB context, as you're used to, and this is of type AppDB context. So down here at the bottom, we have the usual thing. So it's an AppDB context that extends DB context. It's all the usual stuff. We define our DB set, so that's our like working memory set, and it's of type weather forecast. So this is all EF Core stuff, nothing unique to MongoDB. If any of you are thinking like, hey, Luce, why is all of this in one file? Well, we're moving to single file stuff in .NET 10, right? So technically this isn't single file, but I thought let's just shift our mindset a bit and move over to it. So it's all in a single file just for ease of demo. So those of you that are purists that are judging me for this, I do apologize. But we've got this weather forecast class here, and we've got our DB context. Now, just like with any other EF Core application, we're adding a DB context. Now, what's different here is rather than doing something like you use Postgres or use SQL Server, we're going to do .use MongoDB. And then it just takes a couple of configuration options. So the first one is the connection string. This, of course, is coming from configuration because as good .NET developers, we use app settings to store anything secret, like our connection string. I don't want to reveal my password to you, or even worse, accidentally commit it to GitHub and then get shouted at by GitHub security. We've all had those emails. But yeah, so we set it up so it's getting our connection string, and we're telling it we want to use something called WeatherDB. So if we hover over it, you'll see here it's taking the connection string and then the database name. Then there's some other options that are optional, but we will just stick with the connection string and the database. And then where we've got those default minimal API, I believe it's API, but yeah, those minimal endpoints that we're used to. So we've got the /weather forecast. This one is using the weather forecast in the app context. So we've called it DB here. So just like with Entity Framework, every time you want to interact with it, we're just saying, add the new forecast for post. If it's delete, find it. And then if it's not null, remove it, and then call save changes on it. So it's all completely standard Entity Framework Core stuff. You don't need to learn anything new. All it's doing is calling MongoDB under the hood, thanks to provider. So if we stop this and then run it. So if we just do our good old debug button here in VS Code, it should go ahead and run the application. So once it's going, we can go into the VS browser. If you're not aware of this extension in VS Code, by the way, it's amazing. It's called Visual Browser, and it means that you can literally do everything inside of VS Code. So we've got these endpoints here. This is just good old Swagger. We've all been using it for years. So we've got various endpoints that you'd expect from weather forecast. So we can ask it what are our current ones, and just like you'd expect, you get results back. We can even post a new one if we want to. We can say its temperature is not that. The temperature could be optimistic, 20 degrees Fahrenheit, not Fahrenheit, Celsius, which is 68 in Fahrenheit, I think. Different units, metric versus imperial. Let's not get into it.
Quick calculations. I appreciate it.
It's because 20 degrees is the point at which like my mental health starts to soar, and I'm like, hell yeah, sunshine. So I've learned what it is in Fahrenheit because I'm always having to do the maths.
Love it.
But yes, if we execute it, it's submitted it, and we've not done any fancy code. It's literally the usual stuff that you'd expect. Add it, call save changes, so that it doesn't just save it to its data set, but actually commits those changes to the underlying database under the hood. All pretty normal stuff. But what's super cool, right, is if we come in here to the CS prod file. Now, normally you wouldn't be this gung-ho, but live a little, right? So we've got this demo here. So at the moment, we've got it's .NET 9. We can just literally update it to be 10. And then all we need to do is update these versions here. Otherwise, it will get upset. Let's also stop the application first. That will also make it upset. So if we save it, it should take a minute to think about it. We can leave the Swagger version as it is. What's this? Okay, maybe there is a version 8. Okay, this could Could go wrong. Now, obviously, normally you wouldn't update it like this in the CS prod file. You'd use something like NuGet packages, but for the sake of the demo, I'm just doing it here. So literally all we've done is just update the version from 9 to 10. We've not done any we're not doing any changes to the file. We're just going to close this and reopen it. And then it should be fine. Or we might need to do a .NET restore. That's okay. We've all been there, right? This is common .NET developer experiences. So let's just, this is a little bit gung-ho, but like I said, live a little. YOLO, I think is what the kids say, right?
You only live once.
Exactly, yeah. God. I like to think I'm young at heart, but then I remember that I turned 37 in a month and 3 days. I'm like, but yeah, so all we've done is, obviously, apart from .NET Restore to fix the program file, is we're changing nothing in code. We can just run it again, and it should just still work. No compatibility issues, no functionality changes. It will just work. So we're just going to refresh this page for our sanity. So if we call get and try it out now and then execute, we should see that yeah, we've got three entries now. We had 2 before, then we posted a new one, which has all been added successfully. And again, we could even delete one if we wanted to. So if we get its ID, I mean, it's .NET boilerplate code, so its ID is actually pretty dodgy. But they do have object IDs. It's just Swagger won't show it. But yeah, we won't do delete, but that's okay. But the main thing is that, hey, like just like that, we literally have updated from EF Core 9 and .NET 9 to .NET 10 and EF Core 10. And it just worked. Almost like a mic drop moment. Cool, right?
Super cool. And I love when a live demo goes well with a touch of humor sprinkled in.
You have to, right? Like it's the amount of times I've done live demos and things happen on stage. I've had government building evacuations in the middle of giving a talk. Like I've had bugs in PowerPoint and losing all my speaker notes. Like you just when you're doing a live demo, things happen. You just learn to bring a bit of humor. If you don't laugh, you cry, right?
Exactly. Thank you so much for that awesome demo, Luz.
No worries. And like, it's super cool, right? You're just able to update it, and you can use all the standard like interaction patterns with EF Core that you're used to, but it's just using MongoDB under the hood.
That's a wrap on March. Direct S3 restores bypassing Ops Manager, seamless log integration to your favorite observability tools, customizable alert severities to save your pagers, and EF Core 10 support for all of the .NET developers out there.
Amazing. Like, yeah, quite a technical month this month, but we love it. It's nice to mix it up a bit, right? And just see all the different areas that MongoDB is focusing on. And as always, there's more. So if you want to learn more, check out mongodb.com/product/updates for everything we didn't have time to cover today.
Exactly. And subscribe so you don't miss out on next month. Drop questions in the comments. We actually read them.
Wow, amazing. And see you all next month for the next edition of Between Two Leaves.
Yes. See you guys. Thank you.
Thank you.